Just like that, spring, Mackenzie Blackwood is back in the groove. 2 home games against 2 teams that you should beat. I wouldn't say that you should shut both of them out back to back, but that's exactly what Mackenzie Blackwood does. He pitches a shutout against the Blues. He pitches a shutout. 4-0 and 3-0 are your scores on 2 games and 3 nights. And after that gross taste that gets left in your mouth for the East Coast road trip, the Avs come back home for some good home cooking, 4 points, and you go back out onto the road. You finish up this last week on Friday against Edmonton, and then you go into a 2-week break for the Four Nations face-off. But that's exactly what the Avs needed, Spring.
Yeah. First 2 Avalanche shutouts for Mackenzie Blackwood. Almost feels like he should have had one before these last 2 games, the way he's played since he's been in Avalanche. And it's funny because I didn't really see these comments out there, but I could almost feel them from some people, knowing how some people think and react when the Avs lose or even when they win. Because he allowed 4 goals in New York against the Rangers. They end up winning that thing at the buzzer, essentially, thanks to Cale Makar. But Blackwood allows 4 goals. He allowed several to the Islanders, especially in that third period. And I could almost just hear people thinking like, oh, he's coming back down to earth. He just got hot. No, I thought he played well even in those 2 New York games. You're not going to crush it every night. Hellebuck, no goaltender. We've talked about this. Hellebuck's great, but there's no like wah in this league right now. He's damn good. He's so damn good. Now, he wasn't overly tested. It's St. Louis and it's Philly. And so, that's another thing is, they're treating these 5 games like playoff games, the 5 before the break. St. Louis is not I thought, that's a borderline playoff team. Then you really see them. No, that's not a playoff team. The Flyers just sold a couple dudes to the Flames. That's not a playoff team. Hell, speaking of the Flames, I was kind of watching that Red Wings Flames game last night in Calgary. Calgary, that's not a playoff team. But you know what? That's a 7-0 aggregate. That's what you do against teams like that. That being said, if that was for today's game, if that was an actual playoff team, I don't think that ends 2-0. Excuse me. Gerard's goal was just after the horn there. I don't think that ends 2-0.
They didn't?
I don't think they gave it to him. I thought they took it off the board. Yes, they did. No Gerard goal.
As soon as he shot it, I ran downstairs to start setting up everything for the show. That's a shame. All right, 4-0, 2-0.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that would make it a 6-0 aggregate. 6-0. See, this Gerard goal at the end is screwing everything up.
It ruins everything, right? Now you wish you wouldn't even had the win.
If you hey, in the Blues game, oh no, it's 5-0, so 7-0. Jesus Christ, 5-0 in the Blues game, right?
Oh, it was 4-0 after 1. Where is my head right now? Holy, I've got just
we forget about the stupid little Kiviranta goal in the third period because that was a sleepy second and third period. It's a little sleepy today. Certainly to start. And then they picked it up a little bit. Look, Sam Girard is that type of defenseman. Cale and Devon are not going to be on the ice all the time. You'd like to have another one of those guys that can join the rush, that is skilled offensively. You don't win this game if you don't have Sam Girard today.
No, you probably don't. I don't think you win the game without figuring out that when Val Nichushkin isn't in the lineup, your top line should be McKinnon, Lehkonen, and Necas instead of having Jonathan Drouin up there. Because for some reason, when you put Casey Middlestat alongside Juuso Parssinen and Jonathan Drouin at 5-on-5, they start to get dangerous. They immediately become dangerous. And I think they unlocked a little bit about number 37 today. I thought Sam Girard being able to jump up into that rush is every bit what he is, right? Like what makes him worth $5 million a year is his ability to snap pucks and then join the rush immediately. Really sneaky there. I still thought he took a little bit too long to rip that shot off. I thought it was going to get tipped like most of those do. Sam Girard had a good game, man. Really good game. It was a good defensive effort from the Avs. You kind of had to hold on for the first 12 minutes of the game, right? Their first shot was a Casey Middlestat thing from 60 feet away at the 8-minute mark. It was It was insane that it took that long to get a shot on goal against a team like Philly.
If Philly plays that way, it's a John Tortorella team. They will just try to hold their ground, and they make it tough for you to get to the middle of the ice. But conversely, they're not very dangerous or skilled offensively. So they were throwing a lot of pucks on net in the first period, but they don't have those star physical presences to go clean those rebounds up, and to even the Avs are a lighter defensive team, to push them out of the way, to get the skilled goals. So yeah, they were throwing shots on net, but nothing was really dangerous. Blackwood was sound and turned them away, and then the Avs picked it up a little bit. And yeah, Jonathan Drouin has played very well these last two games on this second line. I understand, after the Mikko trade, having Drouin initially on the first line with Nathan MacKinnon, because those dudes have very good chemistry, and it was a good way to ease Marty Necas in to the system. Have him play with MacKinnon and Drouin. But Lekkonen's he's a better player than Drouin. And Drouin's very good. That's how good Lekkonen is. Now, when Nichushkin's back, I'm fine with him on line one or line two. I think Necas and MacKinnon play together no matter what. And the power play, it gets another goal tonight. The Necas effect is felt again on the power play. And, he's unlocking something. I don't think that there was a ton of movement on that particular sequence, but still, I think, Necas is on the right wing on that one. So again, he can occupy right wing, left wing, and net front. It was a good game. It was a good game, but honestly, outside of the first period against St. Louis, it's been good. But if these are playoff teams, it hasn't been great. If these are true playoff teams that they were going against, it hasn't been great.
Yeah, and I don't think you can't hold the second and third period against the Avs against St. Louis. You got out to a 4-0 lead after 20 minutes and had 20 some odd. I think they had 21 shots on goal in that first period. You should take your foot off the gas in that situation, knowing that you have to have everything in the tank for the remaining 5 games after that St. Louis game to make sure that you keep putting up points, right? Like, I'm cool with that. I would have been fine had they won that game 4-2. Like, I would have been okay with it. That's why you get out to leads early, so that you can take the rest of the 40 minutes. I wouldn't say off, but you can kind of relax a little bit. You can spread the numbers around. I didn't hate today's game. It's kind of how I wanted it to play out. You held on in the first period. Did I think that they were terrible when they were getting outshot 9-0? No, because I didn't think Philly ever really had anything that scared the crap out of me in those first 10 minutes of the game. Like, the shots on goal there for me lied a little bit, because it was a back and forth affair. Colorado was just fighting the puck. It seemed like the ice was choppy. I don't know, man. I wouldn't come out of that going back-to-back shutouts, but I'm disappointed. I think that's a little crazy.
No. I'm not disappointed. I'm just saying, if these were like the true playoff teams, I don't think they're pitching shutouts. I don't think that it's a 7-0 aggregate. But like the St. Louis game, like you said, that game's in hand. You can cruise a little bit. You can not bring your A-plus effort against the Philadelphia Flyers team at home and still win. That's what happened today. And it's a shutout. It's a 2-0 win, but I didn't feel like, oh, that was the Avs right there, But you just go against what is right in front of you, and they didn't need that tremendous performance today. Blackwood was very good. It's just it'll need to be even better. Need to be even better. And I say that there's no playoff teams here really until they get to Edmonton, the 5th and final game, the final boss of this.
Vancouver and Calgary are kind of right there.
Well, one of those teams is, or Utah, or even St. Louis. One of those teams is going to get
St. Louis is not getting into the playoffs, man.
Probably
That's
not
a good enough hockey team.
Probably not. But whether it's Calgary or Vancouver, those are the two leaders in the clubhouse for that final wild card spot. To me, looking at the standings, like the top 7. And right now, the Avs technically have that 7 seed, even though they have more points than the Kings. But the Kings get the 3 seed in the Pacific, so therefore they're a higher seed. The top 7, they're in. Barring some barrage of injuries, those 7 are in. and then there's a drop off, and you get either Calgary or Vancouver's going to get in. Doesn't scare me at all. Maybe these are famous last words, and Quinn
Yeah.
Hughes turns it the hell on. But no, that 8 seed's a little bit of a joke in the Western Conference, actually.
The second wild card is going to come down to one of Los Angeles, Calgary, Vancouver. Those are your teams right there. I think you've seen the separation. I don't think Utah is set up right now to go be buyers at the deadline. We obviously saw that Vancouver traded away JT Miller, but they didn't become sellers. That was an untenable situation in their locker room that they had to fix if they want to take advantage of the Quinn Hughes era, right? And you shouldn't be punting during the Quinn Hughes era. You should be going for broke. And you move on from Miller, you get some assets back, you flip that first round pick to go out and get some other big time assets, maybe the best defenseman on the trade board right now. So it's a decent return for Vancouver. LA, I think LA is the better of those.
Yeah,
three
I like
teams.
LA more than Vancouver and Calgary. To me, I'd be surprised if they fell out of the playoffs. To me, LA's in.
What do you think of Calgary? Because Calgary's not going. They're not shopping Nazem Kadri. I've heard a lot of people like, oh, why don't you trade Casey Middlestat for Nazem Kadri? They're not trading Naz. Like, Calgary thinks they can make the playoffs this year. They're not, unless they fall apart. And it's almost at this point, it's impossible to fall apart prior to the March 7 deadline because of what we have coming up starting on Friday, right? What starts, or rather, the break starts on Friday night for the Avalanche after that Edmonton game. You have 2 weeks in a 4-week stretch before the deadline where no one's playing hockey and no one's moving up or down the standings. So right now, these are your have and your have-nots. Utah and St. Louis are closer to being sellers at the deadline than Vancouver and Calgary are, and I just don't see the movement for either one of those teams to fall out.
Yeah, right now Calgary has that second wildcard spot. Right now, Calgary is the 8th seed, a point ahead of Vancouver. But dude, watching that Red Wings Flames game last night, the Flames, they're starting to get exposed a little bit. There's just no juice there. There's really not a ton of juice on that team. So, and I'm not talking about Justus Onanen. I'm talking about like interesting, good hockey players. Naz is a good player, but if he's like your best, most reliable player, that's not where you want to be. That's not.
It's all been Dustin Wolf. Like, Dustin
Sure.
Wolf has a wonderful case to make for Rookie of the Year. Like, it's probably going to go to Macklin Celebrini because he's been awesome for San Jose, but at least Dustin Wolf is putting up numbers that has Calgary in a playoff position.
Very good young goaltender. Very good young goaltender. And I'm excited to watch him play. I haven't really seen a game of his start to finish, so I hope he starts when the Avs are in Calgary this week. But yeah, that's the easiest of the 3-game Canadian swing coming up. And, you know, it's the NHL. Watch Calgary score 4, and I'm like, geez, that's not what this should be. But you know, Calgary, that's like Philly. It's like St. Louis. It's what we just saw. I'm interested in Vancouver coming up. It's the true test is Edmonton. The true test is Edmonton at the end of this thing. It sucks that Nichushkin won't play in that game because even when they win right now, like the margins are so slim, the parity is so good in the NHL. You need Val Nichushkin. Fortunately, though, we're just gonna have to remind ourselves, no matter how that Edmonton game goes, that hopefully Val is playing in the playoffs, and that's all that really matters.
And Val was skating today before the game in a red non-contact jersey. If they needed Val Nichushkin back right now, like if it was a playoff game, Val Nichushkin is playing tonight. That's no doubt in my mind that number 13 would be on the ice. I think they look at this, the remaining 3 games, all on the road, going, dude, we're good. Take your time off, chill, continue to get your conditioning back. Don't aggravate this injury because we've seen guys re-aggravate injuries, and Miles Wood had the issues, and now he's been back and playing, and Jonathan Drouin has re-aggravated issues, so he's only played 22 or 23 games this year. I think they look at Nichushkin and go, we want you back. We don't need you back. And they'll probably look at this 3-game set going, if you can win 2 of 3, 4 out of a possible 6 points, and you go into the break at 57 games played, 68 points, and you can pretty much guarantee yourself at least the number one wild card seed and still keep pace with Minnesota.
All right, here we are. It looks like 15 minutes into our show. I wanted to wait until, because we always have viewers kind of trickle in as 5, 10, 15 minutes go, and more people come in the longer we're on. And so I wanted to wait to say this. This is the most important thing I will talk about on this show today. So it appears that it is Martin Necas. Despite, and like Raj, I was watching a Hurricanes game on national TV just recently. Necas. And I hate that. Like, how do they not get it right from the start? You know what I'm saying? So I am officially going to transition right now on the record to Necas. Even though I swear to God, I've heard that man called Marty Necas time and time again nationally. But what do the national people know? Necas.
I'm cool with it. I knew I was going to mess it up at the beginning, but there's been video of him saying it different ways.
And
sometimes there's getting into the room.
Lost in not necessarily translation, but just accents. The way because I swear, dude, like TNT, whomever, Necas for years, and this always happens in sports. Like my favorite example is Tyrod Taylor, NFL quarterback Tyrod Taylor. Turns out, I think on Hard Knocks he revealed it's actually Tyrod. It's actually Tyrod Taylor. But what am I supposed to do? Like switch to Tyrod, and then people who didn't see that Hard Knocks are like, who are you talking about? You're saying that wrong. And I'm like, no, actually Tyrod Taylor said it's Tyrod.
I never knew if it was Terrell Owens or Terrell Owens.
Sure, it's Terrell. I think he hates Terrell.
But for years I was like, yeah, Terrell Owens.
Sure.
Same thing with Terrell Davis. Is it Terrell or Terrell? It's Terrell.
And like it's when I watch, Avs games nationally, the Hurricanes games we've seen, Rantanen, even though it very well might be Rantanen.
It is Rantanen, but like you don't want to sound like an idiot. Like I know Pierre Maguire, like remember how Pierre used to say it? He used to roll his R.
Oh, he really went Rantanen.
He would
I can't even really roll my R's.
Finish of that. Rantanen. Like,
shut
up. From British Columbia or whatever.
It's so out of place. It's so out of but so Rantanen, Necas. Hey, say Necas. I like Necas, but I will go with Necas. I'll go with Necas now.
Spring power play feels like it's back.
It's Necas.
It is. His ability to drive plays, to create his own offense is something that I didn't necessarily know about him. That I knew he was fast. I knew he was very skilled and had a good one-timer. Those are the three main things that I knew about Marty Necas in Carolina. I didn't think he could power his own ice. Like I thought he was the beneficiary of Andrei Svechnikov, the beneficiary of a couple of other players, whether it was Jake Gensel when he was playing there, Seth Jarvis, who's a member of Team Canada for the Four Nations tournament. I always thought he was a beneficiary. He's not. And I know he plays wing. If he played the middle, I think he could bolster his entire own line.
He could, but I love that speed on the wing. I love that speed, and I knew he had the speed. I knew he was dangerous in space, but I didn't quite realize what a skilled skater he is in tight quarters. Look at the penalty that he draws.
Yep.
In the neutral zone, the little cutback move that he has.
Spinorama.
Yeah, a little spinorama. That was a good move from Necas. So, and his shot, he's got a really good. I mean, his first goal was a wrist shot that Joel Hofer probably wants back in the St. Louis game. But, quick little wrister. He can blast a one-timer. That's a good player. Like, he's not a star. You know, he never made the highlight reels. We'd watch Carolina, and, you know, he just kind of blended in with Svechnikov and Aho, and you could see his ability. And he was a player that you would see get better over the years. You could see the development. He was, you know, year over year, he would get a little better. And then kind of out of nowhere, he's turned into a damn like damn good top end player in this league. This was not the Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis trade. This was a much better trade than that.
That was insane to have come across the desk. What's the NHL equivalent of that?
Well, Luka's not the best player. That's Jokic, but I don't care about his weight. That dude, and I don't even care about his defense. Like, look, yeah, obviously his defense in the finals wasn't great, but that's you sacrifice that with. So he's a top 5 player. So it's a top 5 NHL player. It's Austin Matthews. It's Austin Matthews for
a guy who used to be great, a guy who used to be MVP consideration, but never won one.
And who is still very good, but is not
the same.
Not at his peak, not super elite anymore.
And his peak is never coming back.
Yeah. And who has injury issues sometimes. My gosh, who is that player in the NHL? Help us out, chat. If you got, who's the Anthony Davis in the NHL?
I saw a good one. He's not as problematic as Anthony Davis is. So I'm cool with Austin Matthews being your comp, right? Because Austin Matthews is the best goal scorer in the National Hockey League, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Luka Doncic, you can make the argument, is the best pure scorer in the NBA. Yes? You'd probably put Shai Gilgeous-Alexander
Yeah. Scoring guard, versatile scoring guard. Yeah, Luka's so crafty. Yes.
Kevin goes, I think you're boring, Raj. He keeps yawning when you're talking. No, I didn't get home until 1 a.m. last night because I was at a youth hockey rink for 8 hours yesterday. I'm just very sleepy.
I didn't even notice you yawn, yeah.
I have my comp. My comp is it Evgeny Malkin?
That's almost like an older that's like 80 in 2 years.
Beerman says Gabe Landeskog is.
Yeah, look, that's not bad. We need to see what Gabe looks like when he gets back.
Also,
if he gets back.
this isn't shade at Gabe. Gabe was nowhere near the level of player that Luka Doncic is.
Well, Anthony Davis. Gabe is the Anthony Davis. Even at Gabe, look, Anthony Davis at his peak was really, really good.
Anthony Davis at his peak was MVP level player. Right?
Yeah, and I don't think Gabe was ever that. But yeah, that's actually not a bad comp.
So let's look at the peak of Anthony Davis's career and where he finished in MVP voting. He was second in Rookie of the Year, which is Gabe won the Calder. He was Defensive Player of the Year 8th, 4th, 9th in a row. He finished in those seasons 5th and 9th in the MVP race. He finished 3rd in the MVP and 3rd in the Defensive Player of the Year in 2017-18, which is his last full season in New Orleans. He finished 2nd as Defensive Player of the Year and 6th in the MVP in 2019-2020. Anthony Davis as Evgeny Malkin is almost a slap in the face of Evgeny Malkin.
Drew Doughty.
I'm
just looking through teams right now, and someone said that we got Mark Stone in the chat. Mark was never on 80's level.
Mark
really good
was never MVP level player.
It was and is a really good two-way player. Maybe he's not what he was 2 years ago, but it's like Matthew Tkachuk. Those players are going to be like who they are, the way they play. And also in the chat, Mark Stone is Captain Flop. He got all right. When I initially saw that highlight of him appearing to dive at that Dallas Stars player, was that Heiskanen?
Oh, I've got a good one, Spring.
Was it Heiskanen that Stone dove at?
He did, but he also
got
tripped.
See, and I think a lot of people didn't see and are missing the trip. He got tripped.
What about John Tavares?
That crossed my mind too.
John Tavares is a good one because Tavares never won an MVP, but he was in the conversation of, is he like a top 5 player in the league at one point when he was captaining teams in New York, and then you don't get the $11 million deal in Toronto unless you're in that conversation. And Tavares he's been terrible for the last couple of years. He's better this season. Tavares might be the one. Patrick Kane,
Mel, I think that's great. I think Patrick Kane is a very good one.
Absolutely.
That might be the best, actually.
What are we talking about? Patrick Kane's the greatest American-born hockey player in the history of the game.
Anthony Davis, for a stretch there, for especially like his last year in New Orleans, last couple years in New Orleans, first year or two in LA, was I would say that's Patrick Kane equivalent.
But like Patty Kane's 36. AD is what, 28?
There's not going to be a perfect comp.
He's 31. All right, it's close. It's close. But at 31, Patrick Kane was in the 2019 season. He was an all-star. He was top 15 in the MVP voting. And he was top 25 in the Lady Bing. He was also, he was an all-star player 3 straight years at 31, 32, 33. It's good. I think it's a little close.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite comp. I'm going to go Patrick Kane. That's Anthony Davis. So Kane's still somewhat, he's pretty effective. He plays well with the Wings. He's not bad.
It'd be like trading Austin Matthews right now for 31-year-old Patrick Kane.
Yeah, that's what it would be.
And getting seasons of 84 points, 66 points in 56 games, 92 points, and then he starts to tail off when he hits 34, and he goes from Chicago to the Rangers.
And Anthony Davis is still effective.
You know what, Mel? You're right. The history is not the same of Anthony Davis and Patrick Kane, but if we're talking about trading for each of those players at 31 years of age, you're right, Spring. You're right, Mel. That's right. That's correct.
And the Mavericks are definitely a worse team, but they're going to have quite the defensive front court, the big, long defensive front court. 80, Derek Lively, PJ Washington. They got some, I wonder, like, it's kind of like a stop Jokic move. I'm not sure that's really how Dallas needs to be approaching things right now. But it's an interesting defensive, when we saw how Jokic struggled against, more than he usually does against the Towns, Gobert, Naz Reid trio. But again, if I'm the Western Conference, I'm not sure my goal right now is to stop Jokic, because the Thunder are the team that's blowing everyone away. But maybe it still is stop Jokic.
It's amazing. Stopping the best player in the world is a secondary or a tertiary thought for contenders in the West. That's how broken the Nuggets are right
exactly.
now,
And it's not just OKC, it's the up and down nature of Denver right now too. Yeah.
Yep. That is it. And they came away, they got lucky last night. Did you watch the end of that game? They go down by 4. You find a way to get an and one. Joker gets the and one, goes to the line, hits both of them. And then you get a dribble drive as time expires. That was a wonderful look, and somehow it clanks out.
Dude, I was out doing things, so I was just following on my phone, and I saw they were up big in after the first quarter, going into the second, and then Charlotte started closing things up, and man, they did it against it was a similar story against a shorthanded Sixers team the other night.
Yep.
And they were they were minus 400 road favorites against the Bulls and lost outright, and they've been doing this all year. I don't think I've seen a team be worse for bettors than the Nuggets have been this season. The Nuggets as big favorites are not covering spreads. They're barely winning these big money lines. That has got to be the team that has killed bettors the most this year. Brutal.
Spring, Avs win back-to-back today. It's your first time having back-to-back shutouts since, can you tell me the last goalie that had back-to-back shutouts for the Avs?
Way more recent than you're going to think.
It's going to be way more recent than you think.
Francouz.
No.
Damn, I wanted to go something cheeky.
Justus Onanen back in 2024 had back-to-back shutouts for the Avs. That's the last time that it happened. The Avs haven't won back-to-back games since New Year's when they beat Winnipeg on the 31st, and they came back on the 2nd and won their second straight game against Buffalo 6-5 in the shootout. That was actually part of a 6-game win streak for the Avalanche. Since then, they have either alternated wins and losses, or they had that bad 3-game stretch where you lost home against Minnesota, home against Winnipeg, and then at Boston.
Look, Justus Onanen, man. I'm rooting for him with the Nashville Predators. So what's going on with Scott Wedgwood? Upper body injury, missed today. Trent Miner was called up. Do you know anything beyond that?
I don't know anything beyond what's happening with Wedgie. Again, I wouldn't take Scott Wedgwood on the road trip because you're not going to start anyone else. Mackenzie Blackwood is not playing in the Four Nations face-off, right? Arguably the best Canadian goalie in the game right now is Mackenzie Blackwood, and he is not going to that tournament, which means he gets 2 weeks off of his legs. Mackenzie Blackwood starts every game until you go on your 2-week break. That means for me, Scott Wedgwood, dude, you can go on the trip, be my guest, come on the trip with the fellas, enjoy yourself, be a great locker room dude, be the guy who's setting up dinners and making sure that everyone's got beers in the room after you come back and you wax Vancouver and Calgary, because Lord knows there's nothing to do in Calgary after a win there in the middle of winter. Go on the trip, but I don't want to see him have his gear on this week. Trent Miner, you get to play your 3 games and be a backup. I'm cool with that. And then we get to see Wedgwood and Blackwood on February 22.
The only somewhat awkward thing is it's Vancouver Tuesday, Calgary Thursday, Edmonton Friday. So there's a back-to-back Tuesday, Friday, or Thursday, Friday.
But like you said, Trent Miner, you get to play against Edmonton.
But like you said, Blackwood's about to get 2 weeks off. So if there was ever a time to play both legs of a back-to-back as a goaltender, that's the time.
Yeah, are we treating this like the playoffs, or are we not?
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Yeah, if you're treating this like the playoffs, then Blackwood starts every single game, and that's what they said, regardless of back-to-back scenarios. If you're treating it like the playoffs and all these games matter as if they were playoff games, then you start your one in every single one of them, regardless of back-to-backs.
You think Blackwood gets into? He's not going to win the Vezina because like Connor Hellebuyck's going to win the Vezina this year, and there's pretty much nothing that anyone can do about it. Just it's not going to happen. Blackwood would have to. He'd have to rattle off another like 6 shutouts this year. The Avs would have to vault themselves into the 1 seed in the Central, and Hellebuyck would have to fall off the face of the planet, with Winnipeg dropping to the 3 seed or worse. None of that's going to happen. While Blackwood's still going to be fine, he can't win it. Does he finish top 3 this year?
He could. I could see him getting an invite to the NHL Awards show. Tell you what, though, he could win it next year. Is that even classify as a dark horse pick, or is it becoming obvious that it could happen at this point?
I would not classify that as a dark horse whatsoever, because if he's the answer and the Avalanche figure it out this year and they make another trade and they make a run at the Cup, then you're looking at the Avs going, well, are they going to be a team that finishes with north of 110 points the following season because they actually have a goalie and they won't piss away those 4 losses at the beginning of the season? Right now, the odds, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, Connor Hellebuyck leads the way at -1,000. Logan Thompson is second at +500. He just signed a 7-year extension.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him getting that deal.
Oh, yeah. Great deal for him. Signs the big extension in Washington. Has the Capitals as dangerous a team that there is in the East right now. Philip Gustafsson at +4,000 with Minnesota, and Mackenzie Blackwood at +4,000 with Colorado.
I mean, that Mel in the chat said she's got Blackwood at 300-1 odds. Fun ticket. Gosh, you need Hellebuyck to implode, which is unlikely in terms of his play. You would need him to get hurt. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it's his. He's minus 1,000. It's his to
Yeah,
lose.
I think he could get hurt right now and would still win it. That's how good
That's
he's
another
been.
thing too.
He has been Connor Hellebuck has been a freak this year.
Yeah, and he would need to get into that. I mean, so he would need to get hurt like yesterday, like soon, because even if he misses like the last month of the season, it could still be enough.
Right now, Connor Hellebuck is 33, 7, and 2. 33, 7, and 2. That is more wins. Connor Hellebuck by himself has more wins than the Florida Panthers, who are the number 1 seed in the Atlantic right now. He has more wins than the Dallas Stars do as an entire franchise. He has 33 wins this year. And wins are just as kind of like superfluous as pitcher wins in baseball. So I'm not saying like that's the reason why he should be the Vezina Trophy winner, because, well, we all know who won or who led the league in wins over the last couple of years. It was the guy that we ran out of town, and Alexander Georgiev. If you look at this dude's, he's got a 204 goals against average, a 927 or 925 save percentage. His goals saved above average this year, 27.4 already. Last year, the entire year, he had a 31.5. He's going to blow that out of the water. He's the best goalie in the world right now.
Yeah, he's always been very good, and then this season, like now, it's elite. It's true elite. It's the best goaltending since Vasilevsky. But what's funny is that Blackwood's right there. He really is, and I think hardcore NHL fans, they know what Mackenzie Blackwood's been doing. I think he's flying under the radar for the more casual ones, but I could say maybe it's a dark horse pick to win it next year right now, but I think he will announce himself truly in the playoffs, and then he will become the popular dark horse, the popular sleeper pick, like in the off-season shows on NHL Network when they're like, who's going to win the Vezina? And someone's going to think they're really sly by saying, Mackenzie Blackwood, that's my sleeper. And it's like, dude, because he was just awesome in the playoffs. Yeah, we all saw it.
I just saw a meme on Twitter of, the scene in Moneyball where they're talking to Brad Pitt's character and he's saying, hey, this player he's a top 10 player in the world and getting on base, and we can get him for nothing. And it goes, Billy, this is Luka Doncic. He's a top 5 player in the NBA and can be an all-time great. His only defect is that he gets a little chunky sometimes. This guy should cost us our entire roster and 10 first-round picks, but we can get him for Anthony Davis.
Oh my gosh.
And then the next meme that I see is In-N-Out welcoming Luka Doncic to California, saying, hey, we're better than Whataburger. Somebody quote tweets it and goes, hey, it's Luka's first triple-double in a Laker uniform.
I saw that, and they posted a photo of a triple-double In-N-Out burger.
It's too good. It's too good.
That's a tremendous
Sometimes
tweet right
the cesspool
there.
of Twitter is just,
dude,
it's shit, and then sometimes it is, I'll never delete the app.
There have been so many great Luka related Lakers Mavericks Mavericks GM. Man, he doesn't seem like a Chris McFarland or an Eric Tulsky over here. Did you listen to some of that press conference he had today? My man doesn't seem to know what the hell he's talking about. He was like talking about how like this is good for their future, the next 3 to 4 years. Like, man, Anthony Davis, I'm not sure what he's going to be in 3 to 4 years. And it's just weird. And apparently he was, I watched a video from Chris Haynes. The Mavericks GM used to like work for Nike and had a relationship with Anthony Davis going back to like he helped represent AD through Nike. And now somehow this dude, Mark Cuban, hires him as a GM. I don't know what the hell's going on there.
So he's under contract through 26-27 when he has a player option at age 27.
Might not even make it 3 to 4 years. He could easily decline that option and sign elsewhere.
Would you decline the option? Is there a possibility that we see 2 years from now, Nikola Jokic going to Luka and going, hey, buddy?
If Anthony Davis if he doesn't get hurt, then you decline the player option and you sign a multi-year deal. possibly elsewhere.
I would love to see Luka in a Nugget uniform. There's no way it could happen, but I'll dream. I dream about Sidney Crosby in burgundy and blue. Why can't I think about Luka Doncic in similar colors?
We could have done, man, and the Mavericks didn't even call anybody else. They didn't even they didn't even get into any sort of bidding war for a top 5 player in the league.
Insane.
They didn't give themselves more leverage. What are you doing?
Nutso play. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I don't think it's going to be good for the Mavs. You were close last year, and maybe that was just, you thought that was a who's-y whatsy out there. Wasn't it going to happen again with that same roster? You got lucky because Denver essentially took the air out of the Minnesota balloon, and maybe you got lucky on a run. I don't know. Is that the thought process? I can't get on board with it. All right, Spring. That's it for me today. Avs will be back on the ice coming up in just a couple of days at Vancouver. Late game, 8 p.m. on the road. You'll see Calgary on Thursday and then finish up the first half of the season at Edmonton Friday evening at 7 p.m. And then the Avs go off for a couple of weeks. They return back. However, they're not at home. They'll be at Nashville on Saturday, February 22. Any final thoughts on tonight's game or this afternoon's game?
I got one final thought, not related to this game. Just one final thing that I observed, an observation that maybe many others have made. So yesterday was JT Miller's Rangers debut.
Yes, good game.
What happens? They go into Boston and they lose. Marty Necas and Jack Drury's debut in Boston and they lose. So, one, it's a chemistry thing, you know. Even though JT Miller used to play on the Rangers, probably played with a handful of the dudes on the team right now.
JT Miller is from like the Carl Hagelin days.
Yeah, like maybe a couple hangovers. I don't even know. But
Kreider.
You know, how about that? You know, let's keep an eye on the Boston Bruins schedule coming up, and that'll give us an indication of what teams are going to make trades, because you're likely to face the Boston Bruins after you make a trade, and they're probably going to beat you for some reason.
A different though stat from those debuts and JT Miller's debut. JT scored in that game. JT scored twice in that game.
He did, yes.
He's going to be a good fit for them. New York scares me in the East because there's not a team in the East that I truly fear outside of Florida, because Florida feels like Kansas City in the NFL to me. Florida feels like they're playing with their food. They're just like, yeah, we're good. We're just going to wait till we get to the playoffs. We've been here. We've done that. We've been back-to-back finals. We're going to get this thing done. Florida feels like Kansas City. Everyone else in the East feels fake.
Agreed. I do think Carolina's stock has gone up. I do, but we'll see. I do like that team more than I have right now. And yeah, I think the Rangers ultimately get it done, dude. Those Columbus Blue Jackets,
great story.
That they just keep winning as these big underdogs too. And now the Islanders have won 7 straight. Little comeback win in Tampa last night. Quick overtime win for the Islanders, 7 in a row. So, you know, look, the Avs lose that game, but the Islanders are playing well right now.
Patrick Waugh does not want the Four Nations break to come anytime soon. He wants to keep that train rolling.
Yeah.
All right, Sprim, it's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys late on Tuesday night, somewhere around an 11 p.m. show. Maybe we'll start it a little bit early if the outcome is not in doubt. Maybe Spring and I will pop on early to get you guys before it's like midnight, you know, on a school night, on a work night. But Avs win back-to-back shutouts, 5-0 and 2-0 coming against St. Louis and Philadelphia. We'll see you guys on Tuesday evening. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.